Morning all. All right, kind of late getting this started, but I had to fix the Patreon page. We got the page back. I went in and fixed the page a little bit, and so yeah, we're back. That being said, we're now going to talk about the 1985-1986 season, and then I'll be doing a little news video this morning as well. So I already know the news, but I always start the day off with the look at one of the seasons of the NHL's history, today being 85-86. Out in the Adams Division, the Quebec Nordiques won it that year. They finished with 92 points, a record of 43-31-6, 330 goals scored, 289 goals against. Playing out of, like colleagues say, they were drawing 14,784 fans per game. The building seated 15,434. The Montreal Canadiens, playing out of the Forum, 40-33-7 record, 87 points, 330 goals scored, 280 goals against. So the goals for and against almost the same as their brethren from Quebec City. The Montreal Canadiens attracting 17,184 fans per game. The Forum seated 18,076. The Boston Bruins, of course, playing out of the Boston Garden. 37-31-12 record. 86 points, 311 goals scored, 288 goals against. Attendance low for Boston, 12,431 fans per game. The Garden seated 14,451. The Hartford Whalers, playing out of Hartford Civic Center, 40-36-4 record, 84 points. 332 goals scored, 302 goals against. They're attracting 12,769 fans per game. The building seats 15,126. The Buffalo Sabres, they missed the playoffs that year despite being 500. Would have made the playoffs in any other division. 37-37-6 record. 296 goals scored, 291 goals against. So an even 80 points there. Playing out of the Memorial Auditorium, or the Odd. 14,691 fans per game. The Odd seated 16,433. Out in the Patrick Division, well, the Philadelphia Flyers won it that year. 53-23-4 record, 110 points. So another strong season under Mike Keenan. 335 goals scored, 241 goals against. And they're playing out at the Spectrum, and they're drawing more fans than they have seats. Almost. 17,184 fans per game. The Spectrum seated 17,211. So almost more fans than seats, which was the case back in the 70s, the last time that I reported on attendance. Washington Capitals, 50-23-7 record, so 107 points for them. They would have won the Norris Division or the Adams with that total. 315 goals scored through 272 goals against. Playing out of Capital Center, they're drawing 14,997 fans per game. The Capital Center seated 18,130 fans in total. The Nassau Memorial Coliseum, the home of the New York Islanders, who finished 39-29-12, 90 points. 327 goals scored, 284 goals against. They're attracting 15,810 fans per game. The building seats 16,002, so right near capacity there. The New York Rangers, playing out of Madison Square Garden, 36-38-6 record, 78 points, 280 goals scored, 276 goals against, attracting 17,342 fans per game. MSG seated 17,500. The Pittsburgh Penguins, playing out of Civic Arena, 34-38-8 record, 76 points, 313 goals scored, 305 goals against. So they missed the playoffs again, but at least they're getting closer. They're only attracting 12,576 fans per game in an arena that seats 16,033. But with Lemieux starting his rise, the worst of it's over for Pittsburgh for now. The New Jersey Devils, still in the midst of the worst of it, really. 28-49-3 record, 59 points, 300 goals scored, 374 goals against. Playing out of Brendan Byrne Arena, which seats 19,040, but they're only attracting 11,812 fans per game. And I do remember the articles on, is this going to work in New Jersey? When the Mickey Mouse organization comments made by Wayne Gretzky, it kind of catching fire because I think a lot of people agreed with the sentiment. Then we go out west in the Norris. It's won by the Chicago Blackhawks. They finished 39-33-8, 86 points, 351 goals scored, 349 goals against. Playing out of Chicago Stadium, attracting 17,169 fans per game in an arena that seats 17,317. Minnesota North Stars finished second in the division with 85 points, a record of 38-33-9, playing out of the Met Center. 327 goals scored, 305 goals against. They're attracting 13,215 fans per game. The Met Center seats 15,000 even. St. Louis playing out of the St. Louis Arena, because why wouldn't you? 37-34-9 record, 83 points, 302 goals scored, 291 goals against. They're attracting 12,230 fans per game. The building seats 17,640, so still some financial concern around St. Louis, but they'll be fine. Toronto makes the playoffs because they're in the same division as Detroit. Wouldn't have made the playoffs anywhere else, although they would have just barely missed the playoffs in the Smite Division, because the West right now, a little bit weak. But they do have a couple of pretty good teams in Alberta. So the Leafs finished 48-7 for 57 points, 311 goals scored, 386 goals against. Keeping the puck out of their net is a challenge. Maple Leaf Gardens, though, is nearly full, keeping that whole idea alive that you can put any team on the ice in Toronto, you're going to fill the building. 15,619 fans on average. Maple Leaf Gardens seats 16,182. The Detroit Red Wings finished with 40 points, dead last in the NHL, 17-57-6 record. 266 goals scored, 415 goals against. Some Mickey Redmond groans in sighs on that one. Joe Louis Arena's their home at that point. They're seating 17,028 fans per game. The arena seats 19,275 per game in total. The Smite Division's easily won by Edmonton. They're 30 points ahead of second, 119 points, 56-17-7 record, 426 goals scored, 310 goals against. They're playing at a Northlands Coliseum, which was rocking throughout the 80s. 17,319 fans per game. The building seats 17,498. The Calgary Flames playing out of the Olympic Saddledome, 40-31-9 record, so they have 89 points. 354 goals scored, 315 goals against. They're attracting more fans than they have seats. 16,762 fans per game. The seating, 16,605, so some standing room only there. The Winnipeg Jets, well, they end up finishing third because they're in the same division as Vancouver and LA, and they're just not good. Winnipeg 26-47-7 for 59 points, 295 goals scored, 372 goals against, playing out of Winnipeg Arena. 13,620 fans per game in an arena that seats 15,565. Vancouver makes the playoffs because LA's god-awful. Vancouver 23-44-13, so they win 23 games in an 80-game season, and they're a playoff team. 59 points for them, same as Winnipeg, just 3 less wins. 282 goals scored, 333 goals against, playing out of the Pacific Coliseum, which is often called the Pacific Mausoleum because of how quiet it is, but when you have a 59-point team, it's going to be quiet. 10,446 fans per game in Vancouver. The attendance, 16,553 is the capacity in the Pacific Coliseum at that point. And there was definitely discussions about the long-term future of the Vancouver Canucks, and maybe, just maybe, it wouldn't work in Vancouver. Like, there were discussions more so late in the 90s, but yeah, this was definitely an example that I could use for this is why rebuilds could be tough with Vancouver, because fans will stay away in droves. The LA Kings missed the playoffs because they're just worse than Winnipeg and Vancouver. 54 points, a record of 23-49-8 on the season, 284 goals scored, 389 goals against, playing out of the Forum, and the LA Forum not full. 10,231 fans per game. The Forum seats 16,005. All right. So, June 13th of 1985, the NHL Board of Governors decided to change the rules a little bit because the Oilers are taking advantage of 4-on-4 hockey. There was the belief at the time, too, that they were intentionally creating 4-on-4 situations because they scored really well 4-on-4. So, the NHL changed the rules, so if it's an offsetting penalty, it's still 5-on-5. You can do the substitution. This is the Oilers rule, and it's really proven by the fact that the NHL reverted back to 4-on-4 hockey in 1992. When the Oilers were essentially done as a dynasty. November 11th of 1985, a tragic day in the history of the National Hockey League, and especially for Flyers fans. Pelle Lindbergh dies in a car accident. Absolute shocker when it took place, and it is remarkable that the Philadelphia Flyers continue to put up a great season, and Bob Froese deserves every ounce of credit in the world for being able to step in as a starting goaltender and play really, really well for Philly. That was a year that I became a big fan of Bob Froese, who wasn't like a star goaltender through most of his seasons, but that was really amazing for him because it had to be a lot of pressure with Lindbergh lost and Darren Jensen as the backup. That Darren Jensen had some good games that year too, though. So Gretzky reaches 200 points that year. It's the 4th time he'd done it in 5 seasons. Reminder, nobody else has ever hit 200 points in the NHL's history. Mario Lemieux did reach 199, did not reach 200. Steve Smith, his own goal helps the Flames eliminate the Edmonton Oilers. Might be part of the reason why I'm wearing an Oilers, or not wearing an Oilers jersey here. I'm wearing the Canadiens. I think the Oilers probably would have won the cup, but the only team that could stop them, it seemed at the time, was Calgary. It definitely helped that Steve Smith, who would later play for Calgary, so get your tinfoil hats on. But, yeah, his own goal definitely helped oust the Oilers. It's not the reason the Oilers lost that series, but it really didn't help. Paul Coffey sets a record for NHL defenseman with 48 goals. As the debate over whether or not he's a true defenseman continued, and as you can see, every now and then that debate shows up on the channel. Wayne Gretzky breaks his own record for assists in a season with 163. 163 points in a season is good. 163 assists in a season is absolutely ridiculous. October 7th of 1985, the New York Rangers signed Mike Ridley as an undrafted free agent, so Ridley's career starts there. February 1st of 1986, the Flames make a major trade. They make that major trade with the Blues. The Flames trade Eddie Beers, who had sadly too short of a career. He was a good forward, too. Gino Cavallini, who was a good second/third liner. Charlie Bourgeois, who was a defenseman, to the Blues in exchange for Joe Mullen, a Hall of Famer. Terry Johnson and Rick Wilson also part of that trade. But obviously the big part there being Joe Mullen going to Calgary. Calgary really did quite well with Joe Mullen after that. December 11th of 1985, the Oilers beat the Hawks 12-9 to beat their own record for combined goals in a game. They had beaten Minnesota 12-8 in a game a couple seasons before that, set the record with 20 goals. This game has 21 goals. That's 7 goals a period. That's absolutely insane. January 28th of 1986, Denny Potvin scores his 271st career goal, which passes Bobby Orr on the all-time goals list for defensemen. Kudos to him for that. Of course, eventually that becomes Ray Bourque's record. January 11th of 1986, Marcel Dion scores his 20th goal of the season. It is the 15th straight season to start his career that he's reached the 20-goal mark. He's the first NHLer to do that. March 26th of 1986, Neil Broughton is a first. He's the first U.S.-born player to reach 100 points in a season, and he would eclipse that by a little bit. We'll see that when we get over to the stats side of things with this season. All right, so now we'll get into the award winners. Wayne Gretzky wins the Art Ross again for the Edmonton Oilers. The Masterton goes to Charlie Simmer of the Boston Bruins. The Calder Trophy goes to Gary Suter of the Calgary Flames. So the Flames already had McInnes. Now they add Suter. They get Mullen. Pretty good team they're building there. The Conn Smythe goes to Patrick Roy of the Montreal Canadiens. A sensation's born. Again, I think the best goalie I've seen in my lifetime watching hockey. But again, that's a whole point of debate, isn't it? The Selke Trophy goes to Troy Murray of the Chicago Blackhawks. I believe that's his 99-point season, so it's kind of weird he wins the Selke when he has a great offensive season. The Hart Trophy goes to Wayne Gretzky of the Edmonton Oilers. The Jack Adams goes to Glenn Sather of the Edmonton Oilers, so the Oilers had some hardware, including the Norris Trophy, which went to Paul Coffey of the Oilers again. The Lady Byng goes to Mike Bossy of the New York Islanders. The Lester Pearson goes to Mario Lemieux of the Pittsburgh Penguins. So the players felt that Lemieux was the best player in the league. The Jennings, Bob Froese, and Darren Jensen of the Flyers. So again, all the best to Bob Froese on that one. The Vezina goes to John Van Beesbroek of the New York Rangers. The All-Stars, Wayne Gretzky, the Oilers' first-team All-Star down the middle. Mario Lemieux, the Pittsburgh Penguins' second team. They are the best 2 players in the league. On the left side, Michel Goulet of the Quebec Nordiques' first team. Matt Snazzland of the Montreal Canadiens' second team. On the right side, Mike Bossy of the Islanders' first team. Yari Curry of the Oilers' second team. And on the blue line, Paul Coffey of the Oilers' first team alongside Mark Howe of the Philadelphia Flyers. Larry Robinson of the Montreal Canadiens on the second team, along with Ray Bourque of the Boston Bruins. John Van Beesbroek, first team goaltender for the New York Rangers. And Bob Froese of the Flyers' second team All-Star. Maybe I need to do a Bob Froese video. I mean, I know they don't draw views, but I still enjoy talking about goalies from the 70s and 80s a lot, which people have found out. Wayne Gretzky leads in scoring by a lot. His 163 assists would be 22 points better than Lemieux overall. Doesn't even need a goal. 80 games, 52 goals, 163 assists, 215 points. Just ridiculous numbers. Mario Lemieux, 79 games, 48 goals, 93 assists, 141 points. Paul Coffey of the Oilers, 79 games, 48 goals, 90 assists, 138 points. Again, ridiculous for a blue liner. Yari Curry of the Oilers, 78 games, 68 goals, 63 assists, 131 points. Mike Bossy of the Islanders, 80 games, 61 goals, 62 assists, 123 points. Peter Stastny in Quebec, 76 games, 41 goals, 81 assists, 122 points. Denny Savard in Chicago, 80 games, 47 goals, 69 assists, 116 points. Mats Naslund with Montreal, 80 games, 43 goals, 67 assists, 110 points. Dale Hawerchuk in Winnipeg, 80 games, 46 goals, 59 assists, 105 points. Neil Broughton in Minnesota, 80 games, 29 goals, 76 assists, 105 points. And in net, Bob Froese leads the way in wins alongside John Van Beesbroek. Both of them win 31 games, but Froese, 31, 10, and 3, 909 save percentage, 5 shutouts. Those numbers are ridiculous by 80 standards. Van Beesbroek in New York, 31, 21, and 5, 887 save percentage, 3 shutouts. Tom Barrasso in Buffalo, 29, 24, and 5, 879 save percentage, 2 shutouts. Grant Fuhr in Edmonton, 29 and 8 record, 890 save percentage. Reggie Lemelin in Calgary, 29, 24, and 4 record, 872 save percentage, 1 shutout. And Al Jensen in Washington, 28, 9, and 3 record, 889 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. I could deal with a rabbit. Somebody's picked trouble this morning, I guess. Rabbits do that at times. All right, where was I? Yes, we were getting into the playoffs. So the division semifinals were still best 3 out of 5 with the first round of the playoffs. Calgary beats Winnipeg 3-0. Edmonton beats Vancouver 3-0 because both teams had 59 points in the regular season. They're both just objectively not good. St. Louis beats Minnesota 3-2, so an upset there. And the big upset is Toronto knocking out Chicago. One of the odd things about the mid-'80s Toronto Maple Leafs is when they got in the playoffs, they were really tough to beat, but they weren't very good in the regular season. So, odd right there. Washington beats the Islanders in 3 straight, so the Islanders' status as a potential contender kind of hurt there. The New York Rangers beat Philadelphia in 5, so the Flyers lose in that first round. Huge upset there by the New York Rangers. The Montreal Canadiens play Boston, which means that's a bad matchup for Boston. Montreal wins all 3. Patrick Waugh, his ownership of Boston would only be challenged when Eddie Moog gets there. The Hartford Whalers beat Quebec 3-0. In the division finals, Calgary beats Edmonton 4-3 in the aforementioned Steve Smith own goal helping to set that up. St. Louis beats Toronto 4-3. So the Leafs tough in that second round. Tough out for St. Louis. The Rangers, they beat Washington 4-2. The Capitals were an excellent regular season team. Couldn't quite get over the hump. That's a tradition that continued for a long time for Washington. And Montreal beats Hartford to take 7 games there. So some pretty thrilling playoffs in that second round. And then in the conference finals, St. Louis wins the first game in Calgary 3-2. The Flames win at home 8-2 in the second game in St. Louis. Calgary wins 5-3 to go up 2-1. Then St. Louis ties the series with a 5-2 win. Calgary wins at home 4-2. St. Louis wins 6-5 in overtime to tie the series. And then Calgary beats St. Louis 2-1. That is a 7-game series victory for the Calgary Flames. On the other side of the ledger, Montreal beats the Rangers in the first 2 games at home by scores of 2-1 and 6-2 respectively. They then go into Madison Square Garden. They win 4-3 in overtime. The circus is no longer a problem for Rangers playoffs. The Rangers win 2-0 over Montreal to avoid the sweep, and then Montreal wins at home 3-1. So those goal totals by the Rangers are low because Patrick Waugh, Montreal wins 4-1. In the Stanley Cup final, it's Calgary and Montreal. Great Stanley Cup final. I remember debating with my friends on whether or not it was better to see Montreal win another Stanley Cup or how much fun it would be to see Calgary win one. But either way, Montreal had some plans here. Calgary wins the first game at home 5-2, but in the second game, Montreal wins in overtime 3-2 because they have that goaltender Patrick Waugh, who's fantastic in overtime. Then Montreal wins at home 5-3 and 1-0. So go up 3-1 on a shutout victory for Patrick Waugh. What else is new? And then Montreal goes into Calgary and wins 4-3 in that final game to win the series in 5. Dan Quinn is the leading scorer for Calgary in the final, a goal and 4 assists. Jim Poplinski had a goal and 3 assists in the final. Al McInnes had 4 assists in that final. Joey Mullen had 2 goals and an assist. So did Lanny McDonald. Mike Vernon went 1-4 in the final, 894 save percentage. You'll notice that Reggie Lemelin was the goaltender who had the most wins for Calgary that year. But yeah, it's becoming Mike Vernon's net. That would see Reggie Lemelin go to Boston. And Lemelin had a .923 save percentage, but very small sample size in the final for him. On the other side of things, Mats Naslund, 4 goals and 3 assists for 7 points. Bobby Smith had 2 goals and 2 assists. Chris Chelios, a goal and 3 assists. Gaston Gingras had 2 goals and an assist. Claude Lemieux had a goal and 2 assists. And David Maley had a goal and 2 assists. And Patrick Waugh, a .904 save percentage in the final. And again, he gets the Conn Smythe Trophy that year. So Stanley Cup and Conn Smythe, that would go together for Patrick Waugh a couple more times in his career. But there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.